What a party. I am glad I'm here. I don't care who threw this. I never did know, but I'm glad I'm here. I'm glad they included me. And 2 minutes later, there you are, Mr. and Ms. Boring. But consciousness is making the continual, pulsating judgment that this party is going to drive me nuts. This party is going to make me pull my hair out. Or on the contrary, I am having so much fun, I am sure somebody has slipped several million grams of benzodrine into the punch. I'm about to explode. It's so much fun. It is so good to be alive and to be at this party. There is a continuation. There is a continual flow in such a way that what begins to be a continuing part of your awareness is it is the party in toto, the total party, and not the participants, including you, that is life. The participants are back to the level, once attention, once consciousness is only dealing with the apparent party goers. You are back to the world of nouns. You're back to the world of, I have things here. I have boring things. I have unpredictable things. I have aloof. I have non-committal things. And consciousness does not see that a party is not the participant. They're referring to life as being this party. It is the party in toto and not the party goers. All such examples, and me coming up with stories about parties and this and that, various forms of trying to get you to see that there is that which I have described temporarily as everything from forces to flows to inclinations to systems, while trying to talk about what would apparently be something that could be divided. We're talking about a force being force C, and that from certain views it would be thought of, or my description would lead one to believe that it sounds as though it's talking about something that would be beneficial, something that would be good for people, something that would be more creative as opposed to a kind of destructive behavior or of murderers. And as much sense as it can apparently make on the surface, for me then to continually wrap it up or to remind you that there's no such thing as a C, D, E, Z, X, Y force running loose here by itself. We'll try my party. You're born into the party. You find yourself right at the door and it closes behind you. And you can't get out, and it's you and everybody else in the party. There may be side rooms like a little powder room, but you can't get out of the party room. I do assume that a few of you saw or thought I was inferring some kind of connection between these groups of people and our good old three forces. But none of the forces can get out of the room. And now these party goers, there is no way that you can turn around and find one person standing over here, no way, and say, there is an aloof person. You can't be aloof by yourself. You at least got to have an observer. Well, I'm observing. That's an aloof person. There is a fitful person. There is no such thing as a fitful person. It takes at least two people for him to be fitful. It's got to be you, for whoever's calling him fitful has got to be observing him. And of course, the other minimal alternative is he can only be fitful when you turn around. You got your observation, and you've got him staying there next to this real stodgy woman. Well, then obviously. Now this woman's either aloof or stodgy. I'm a little unclear. But no matter what she is, that guy staying there He keeps patting his foot and goes da-da-da, and he's not listening to half what she says. I can just see it, and he's going da-da-da, da-da-da. He's playing with his drink. There is somebody out of the first group you mentioned. The rowdy people. But there is no such thing as a person staying in the corner by themselves. In case you would like, how about a new version of, instead of the tree falling in the forest? I'll give you an up-to-date Zen question. Can there be a party goer in the corner with no one to observe him or her? It's not only do they not exist, but even if I granted you that they exist, they can't be identified. That nobody in the room is fitful, aloof, distant, stodgy, whimsical, unpredictable, not by themselves. But as long as you're in the party room, you are one of those. But you're not in the party room alone, and you can't get alone. There's nowhere to hide. If you go in the corner, at least somebody in the party room is going to see you go there and stand by yourself. And as soon as you're seen, you're something. You belong to one of the group as soon as somebody sees you, and there is nowhere to hide. Somebody's always going to see you. I hate to point out the worst part, any of you who have voices thinking that you could lead off into a crevice that I didn't cover. If nobody could see you, which doesn't happen, it's what hermits try. But anyway, if there's somewhere in the room that you found a curtain, you found a tapestry on the wall that had not really been nailed down, and you tried to get behind it and thought, nobody can see me, you can see you. There is no way to divide up the party. It is what consciousness ordinarily does. That is a part of what holds things together. That is a part of the way in which man operates as an expansion area of life. But there is nowhere to hide in the party room, and there is no way to divide the participants from the party itself. I would suggest, as much trouble as I know many of you still feel, nothing is amiss, you're not behind, of coming to some kind of grips with the reality of there being a bare minimum of three forces of a triadal situation holding everything together at this observable level. And it's feeling like that 1 and 2 sometimes confuses me, but at least it seems to make some sense. But 3, and then trying to say, all right, I think I can observe 1 or 2 or this one, and then try to fit that in with also you saying that, well, none of them exist alone. There's no such thing as something being simply a C force or a D force. I suggest that some of you might find another step, at least, by trying to hold this picture of there being an absolute party. My description of the 3 types of people at this party, and the 6 words I used for the 3 groups, I could have used others, but I picked out those, and it about wraps it up. It about covers all that you can observe. But there is no way to rely upon any apparent truism of, well, all sorts of one people I'll find over there to get at the piano, or I'll find all these other group of people over in the kitchen. I'll find them in a quieter area of the party room discussing important matters. Then I'll find the more frivolous people, the ones that want to dance and be silly and put lampshades on their hats. They'll obviously be over here. Or, if the silly people, they get too close to the ones out here in the kitchen, there could be trouble. To believe that there is some way that you can separate these people, that there is some place in the party room where things are running more agreeably. I mean, I like a party as well as anybody, but my God, they let these rowdy people, they'll take over. Now that's an observation of one of the types of people at the party. And I might point out to you, it's not an observation of a rowdy person. But that may be your observation, that this party is entirely too rowdy. I mean, just look at the newspapers. Look what is going on in the world. Why don't people calm down and get a three-piece suit, wear a tie, it helps kind of hold you in, it makes you feel more serious. Go to church, join the Civitans or somebody, but grow up, damn it, don't be rowdy. Those people, they're always at every party. They have too much to drink. They talk too loud. They keep insisting on having loud kinds of music going on. Then someone else could be observing at the party. You could have somebody else observing. You know what's wrong with a good party? Is you've always got a bunch of people who, what it amounts to is they are party poopers. We get in here, we go to the trouble to bring in good food, or somebody does, there's music, and you've always got a group of people, I mean a sizable group of people that's always saying, listen, it's too loud. Why don't you people calm down? Or they say, why don't we shut off the music and discuss, can you believe it, economics or politics? I assume also that some of you could, it's no great flight, or no great jump, to see that in a sense what has always been referred to as some sort of supernatural, superconscious state of awareness is simply that there you are like everybody else in the midst of the party. One time all the things I'm saying that you should not be limiting yourself to, that ordinary consciousness will limit you to, that kind of division, is to suddenly look around and you understand what the party is. But you look around and you see, you experience the party, not the participants. That there for that blinding instance, which could last a day, is you no longer see the rowdies, you no longer see the old stogies, you no longer see the aloof, you see the whole fucking party. And there is no division. There is no party without the participants, but the participants are not the party. Like everything else in this, so this is a prime example currently with most of you, the apparent difficulty of getting some apparent firm hold on the idea of there being a triaxial basis for everything that is. Now, the presentation of me coming up with all these different ways in which to attempt to sketch it and to direct your attention to it, it's not for you to add on some kind of new strange theory. To begin to see this, to begin to see party forces, to begin to see that there is a party, but the participants are not the party, and that no party is always pleasurable to you, neither is every party an absolute drag, and neither is there any way that you can rely upon yours or anyone else's ordinary consciousness division of people into the kind of groups I described, of trying to fathom, trying to figure out why it apparently over on one side of the room you can have birds of a feather flocking together and just having a big time, and you can look right over here and find birds who are not of a feather apparently just kicking up their heels. They can look back over here and find apparently birds of a feather, and they're no longer, this group's not having a good time. They're in hand-to-hand combat. You know, none of it makes any sense. It cannot make sense if you divide the participants from the party. But it is not to simply add on a new theory. To begin to see the kind of party forces, to begin to see the party, to struggle to see the party instead of the participants, it begins to produce a kind of familiarity with. It begins to produce a kind of comfort with the party itself. there is a real, I won't try to conjure up a pseudo-mystical word, how about comfort for the night? And seeing that the party is the direct manifestation of life's ripening through a 3D window. But once you see it, let's keep comfort for the night. But many of you now would consider that a major step. But it is not only a comfort, but it is a familiarity that is the reality behind ideas of enlightenment and mystical insight and etc. But it's to see the party, not the divisions into participants, not the divisions into groups, clumps of people, that ordinary consciousness attempts to explain away cohesion between the people or the animosity between the people in religious, psychological, or either proverbial terms. Because this group of people over here, those two people, those 2 million people over here in the corner are not the party. They'll never be the party. And it shifts. By the time ordinary attention turns this way and looks back, the 2 people are the 2 million people. It's not the same 2 million. Or if it is the same 2 million, it's not the same ones talking, it's not the same heat exchange going on. All you got to do is look away and look back. And the 2 million people over in this corner that you thought you had identified, like, well, that's 2 million of the rowdy people. I know them. I've seen them before. I've read about them. I just know that you got to watch those people. And you turn around and look back, and something's happened. Ordinary consciousness, an ordinary observer, will not be aware of it, but you become aware of it that they don't stay the same. You cannot. It's of no benefit to try and literally count heads, but you can also look away from the 2 million rowdy people and look back, and now 10 of them wandered over here to go take a piss or something, and it was replaced by 8 aloof people and 2 boring people. That wouldn't have any effect on 2 million, would it? The party goes on. Nobody can leave the room. Nobody can call in a friend. But everybody shifts about. You go here, you go there. Until, of course, you get grown. And then where do you go? You go the same place over and over. There are only 2 or 3 places in the ballroom, in the party room, that you feel comfortable. Everywhere else is either dangerous, boring, or just totally inexplicable. And of course, I might add, you find this group over here frightening, unpredictable. Let us say that if you were ordinary, you found yourself feeling more sociable with, more drawn to those guys hanging out in the kitchen that seem to be, hate to say, but rather tedious, as opposed to hanging out over here with the unpredictable, whimsical people. If that's my choice, I guess I really belong back there in the kitchen with those rather tedious, stodgy folks. There are people in that room that consider you unruly. It's quite difficult to believe. I mean, the way I'm dressed, the way I look, and I'll tell you, I'm even so into myself, self-study, all the analysis I've done on myself. I know I'm not real exciting. I belong in the kitchen. I'm more of a boring, conservative person. But there are people in that party that consider you to be unruly. It's impossible. Plus, there are people in that room that find you to be just an enigma. You don't become their personal hobby, but you fall into the category with some of the people at the party as just being just aloof to the point of being inert. Disinterested to the point that they can even take that kind of disinterest and it jump from the third group. Now all they got to do is turn their head or have another sip of gin and look back, and it's gone from being rather aloof to potentially dangerous. Some of the question or two that I responded to in the last week or so about fear. If you ever get a glimpse, it begins to expand to the fact that at line level, everything is the placebo effect. Reminding you of the general definition of the placebo, of that kind of medicine, that kind of anything being passed around at the party. They might call it dope, they might call it blank, but that's being passed about. It's being given merely to satisfy the patient. How about merely to entertain the partygoer? To begin to see that at line level, at the level at which the tenor of the party is operating, everything that is going on, the dancing, the exchange of business cards, the serious conversations back in the kitchen about politics, the unruly crowd over here always playing the loud music and knocking over the plants and scaring the children, that all of that is the placebo effect, that everything at that level. You might also begin to get a glimpse of the fact that it's only at that level that what consciousness now refers to as fear exists. It's only there. Let me refine, which is what all of you normally now refer to when you write me a question about fear. You're not referring to red circuit fear anymore. In most parts of the world, that is not the problem any longer. It is what ordinary consciousness would perceive to be a kind of psychological fear, not fear that someone's really going to rob me or beat me up, kill me tonight. I'm talking about serious stuff. I'm talking about fears of being rebuffed. I'm talking about fears of being laughed at. I'm talking about fears of not being respected. I'm talking about real stuff. As long as you suffer any of those fears, let me point out to you quite directly that you are still being a what? You are a, how about a three-word hyphenated? You are a what party goer? And only whats fear other whats. The only way you can have the sensation of there being a villain at the party, a personal villain to you, somebody at work, your family, your ex-wife, your ex-husband. The only way you can have any sensation of there being bad people, villains at the party, is the same way, the only way that you can have any sensation that there are heroes at the party. Suddenly there seems to be a flurry of activity. Did I hear Bruce Springsteen? Buddha? Who? Who is it? Somebody famous. Let me over there. The only way that you can have any sensation of there being a villain to avoid somewhere at the party, or there being a hero, is for you to be a what? You can't be a who. But as long as you are fulfilling the what point on the grid, as long as you are fulfilling your place at the party, until that great midnight striker selects you in particular and says, Bunky, the party is over. That's the only time you get to leave the room. But up until that point, if you're operating at line level consciousness, no matter where you seem to move in the party, although I've already mentioned, all of you should be aware, your movements in the party, once you get past 17 or 18, 19, There's damn few places you go in the party anymore. Well, I'm just not that interested, but be that as it may, you're limited to just certain places in that party room that you feel comfortable. It seems worthwhile to be with. The right kind of people, some fairly interesting conversation. Over here they're showing a few movies. They're playing my kind of music. But for you to have any feeling of fear, or as I said, even any sort of feeling of hero worship, but I was referring primarily back to some continuing questions about fear, the kind of non-physical, non-red circuit fear, anytime you're experiencing that, and I don't care what the circumstance, there's no way out of it. You can't explain it away. You can't find an exception. Quite welcome to look. If you don't look, you're an idiot. That's when you send them for a follower, isn't it? I always wanted a new one, that's it. An idiot. That if you have any of that kind of mortal fear, whatever it is, I am not going to get up and dance, I'm not going to get up and respond to what that person said, I'm not even going to walk in that part of the room, something will happen. I will be hurt. Not physically, fuck that. I'll get hurt. I'll be laughed at, I'll be ridiculed, I won't be respected. Maybe even worse yet, they won't even notice I walked over there. There is no way out. There is no way you can explain it. Outside of me pointing out to you that only whites fear other whites. That's what you're left with. There is no other way out. You have to be at that level to fear anything at that level. And that's the only place it exists. Any consciousness above line level, since I don't give them any promises, and since enough of you now at least had glimpses, you know it, so it's not just a dream. Anything above line level, there's no such thing as fear. Unless you're smart enough, you still want me to admit some kind of new cosmic fear of terminal ennui. And that's just a joke. If you have any psychological fear, you are still in the party and you are at the minimal level. You are participating right at the level you should at the party. I don't care if the area in which you're standing seems to be swept with almost a mass hysteria, a mass fear. If someone begins to holler, did somebody holler fire? You know, which is, did somebody say atomic war is coming tomorrow? Is the environment about to fall apart tomorrow? Anytime you are feeling that fear, I don't mean you can still be aware of it and not be participating, but anytime you feel it, anytime you feel as though I personally am fearful, this is serious. Forgetting any of the inner voices' attempted psychological rationalizations, I am simply afraid. I can't be around those people. I'm not going to walk over there. Even standing here now, I seem to be in some kind of torment just wondering what they're thinking about me. I just know that those 2 million people over there are talking about me. I just know it. Look at them. Most of them turn around right now and laugh. There's nobody behind me. What are they laughing at? I know. In fact, as you see, as soon as I look, they all turn back the other way. There's just no doubt. They're all laughing at me. And I just feel terrible. I've always felt terrible. Life is unfair. I don't deserve to be laughed at. Or worse yet, maybe I do. Etc. ... I refer you back to what most of you found to be some of my opening comments months ago. There is no way in which to track the horizontal path in any profitable way and to find a reason for this, because it is not in the environment. Being born into the party, that's it. You can't open the windows. You can't find anything the ordinary consciousness would identify, in your opinion or anyone else's, such as unparty-like behavior, spoil sports. We have this group of people over here, plus sometimes we have what apparently is this idea runs through. Someone over here starts saying, hey, why don't we do this at the party? And it's a shocking idea. And before I could stop it, it seemed to just sweep through the room over here. In some way, we got to isolate whoever started this, and now whoever it spread to, we got to get them in some way, and we're going to throw them out of the party, right? All you got to do is look around, and there is no way out. Where are you going to put them? We've got to stamp out this political ideology. We've got to stamp out this kind of personal prejudice. We've got to stamp out this kind of religious intolerance. All right, so if you get it, and you could stomp on it and roll it up, where are you going to throw it? There is no garbage disposal. You can't open a window. There is nowhere. Those of you who are tracking this fast enough, of course, if there was a window, if you could make a window and find that which some party goer, including yourself, disapproved of, and you could get it and the people involved and open the window and throw it out, you do know what would happen, don't you? It would be like the window going out of a plane at 30,000 feet. If you found the hole and you threw them out, everybody, the whole party would suddenly go. It would be the change then, at least in the fourth dimension, of atmospheric pressure. And that'd be the end of everybody. So you're back to, I hate to tell you, but if ordinary consciousness, as it perceives it, could effect the ultimate cure, the patient would buy the farm. That includes the universe. Whatever you could perceive to be the faults, the weaknesses of the universe, and you could cure them, that'd be the end of it. I've got one for you. Back to some of our rhetorical, our 4D rhetorical dancing. Once I point it out, I think you'll all be aware of what I mean. Why is it that historical life has driven men to seek apparently redeeming qualities amidst evil? I have read several, I mean, they're apparently serious accounts now by a legitimate publisher. There was a fair section, it was down about halfway through the book. It was pointing out how close Stalin was to his mother. I have no doubt they say that, I wasn't there, but they say that he did away personally with almost anywhere between 10 and 12% of the Russian population during about a 10-year period. But it would touch your heart to see how close, I mean, there he was, the leader of the second most powerful country in the world after World War II. And how close he was to his mother, the trouble he went to visit her 2 or 3 times a year. How he sent his personal physician looking after her. I mean, it just shows you, doesn't it, that you can have a man that on one level, that one facet of him would seem to be very simplistic and direct, that the man's a madman, he was an intolerable tyrant. And yet, you shift a little bit, or you read the right kind of book, you talk to somebody and you find out he loved animals. He was so nice to his mother. I assume you've got, and you can find this again back as far as the Yellow Circuit has been operating enough to write down and record history of everything from would-be philosophers to novelists that apparently had some better than average insight into the complexity of human nature and the human relationships. The Shakespeare, the Greek dramatists, up until today. But those that seem to have a deeper insight, and it's not just the individuals, you find people reading it, you can find touches of it in yourself. My made-up example about Stalin's apparent closeness to his mother. But to read about and to hear about humanity, and you can feel yourself reacting, apparently searching for redeeming qualities amidst what seems to be undeniably evil. I ask you, what purpose may be being served and the overall ripening of life. I ask you further, the idea, and it seems to be more than a theory. I mean, it seems to be more than just some kind of cockeyed thing that, well, I bet Genghis Khan was real nice to his immediate family. He did build poor houses. But to feel yourself attracted to that, it just seems like, well, that's good to know, that I'd like to believe that. The second dance question I was going to ask you, besides what possible purpose might be being served, is it even possible? The way that ordinary consciousness sees it, that is the possibility, if not the actual existence, of redeeming qualities amidst overall evil, to wit, Stalling being good to his mother. Can there be C existing right in the heart, right in the dark belly of D? Is it possible? If so, then how can you call it D? Or if you find out this is true about Stalin, let's assume that you just had a high school undergraduate notion of what Stalin was, from, let's say, an American viewpoint. Man's a bloodthirsty madman. If there's a hell, he's roasting on the hottest flames. And then to hear the great efforts, the great love that he had for his mother, it almost killed him when she died. And it's like, oh, can you really think, oh, can you really feel awe after it's already being established that here is the epitome of D? Here is evil exemplified. Is once consciousness has already instilled in it that in one given area, whether it be directed toward a man such as Stalin or anyone, or just some area of history, some area of the party room, some group of people, some idea, just seems to be without any doubt evil, just evil per se, is then to look within that group, to try and look within what seems to be that idea, that philosophy, to find any so-called redeeming quality to it. Can it be done? Can you do it at line level? If you can find yourself apparently being able to do it or have done it, or if you find apparently that you can't see any way it can be done, then I refer you back to my first question of what use might be life making of this continual apparent search for redeeming qualities amidst apparent evil. Should I also take time to point out that not only are you born into the party, or to ask you about the question of seeking redeeming qualities amidst evil, is it time to remind everyone to also take the party in seeking apparent redeeming qualities amidst evil, is take all that out there and to put it all in here. That there is likewise a universal party going on in here, and there is likewise internally. Not just worrying about Stalin, but there seems to be this continual drive, varying slightly from person to person, to within seek redeeming qualities amidst all of my warts, dandruff, ill temper, bad breath, stinking feet. There must be redeeming qualities, and it will just do my heart good should I find them. I have another rhetorical dance question for you. Why is it that also throughout the history of the Yellow Circuit, the history of man, have the apparently money-driven people been so disapproved of? Literature, just general feelings amongst people. To pick out figures, historically or fictionally, it seems to be characters that are money-driven. I mean, it goes all the way from some kind of general feeling of disapproval to a kind of hatred. Why? I ask you again, what is going on within the general growth of life that seems to make figures, be they real, be they imaginary, be they apparently archetypical, to those that seem to be just driven by money, seem to be the immediate, continual object of extreme disapproval. What could be going on? All right. This time I was going to give you a couple of seconds. You should continue it yourself because there is something here that is so widespread. And it's just another example that ordinary consciousness will not latch onto, but of life talking about itself, life talking about the complex situation of the party. So let me give you, pretend you and I are over in the corner by the yucca tree since I asked the question. Yeah. I like just a general pointing that the kind of, how about this, the kind of transfer of physical funds would not be, that the kind of, how about this, the kind of transfer of physical funds would not be the optimum human exchange. Was it a loose dog? Somebody got it? Well, to begin with, we use an example of those that seem to be money driven, that seems to be the extent of their interest in life. Of course, there's no such thing as absolute, and there's nobody that's absolutely money driven. I would also refer you to the fact that the kinds of people that life in part in the party seems to disapprove of, that seem to be driven only to make a profit, are also, in a sense, doing some of the best work for life. There is a way in which, as strange as it sounds, I've brought up several times, that those that apparently have life by the tail, as people used to say in Alabama, people that seem to be delighted to get up in the morning and get down to the office. Just work, 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 and party, 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 and then sleep a little few hours, and then work, 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 work. They just seem to be delighted. So everything seems to be fine. No great complaints. Wish there were more hours in a day. I could work more. There is a way in which, if you recall, I pointed out to you that there's a way in which, from one vantage point in the party room, that they are serving life better than rabbis and priests and ministers and do-gooders. And I also simultaneously point out to you that from another viewpoint, and I was hinting, of course, vis-a-vis this aspect of life, of this thing, is that they're very dangerous. So, what could be, or what has been, fairly easily defined as simply being people driven by the desire for money, the accumulation of wealth. You know, all the religions, and somewhere in all religions, there's some condemnation that God doesn't like that. You know, that's not the way to live. You're not put here just to make a profit off of everybody. And then besides religious people, then just ordinary people seem to approve that, yeah, the optimum, what I was suggesting to you, trying to get you to look in a certain way, that the optimum use of human energy cannot be confined to an exchange that seems to be on the basis of material profit. Not because it's wrong in some strange way, but that the optimum energy needed for life to grow in the way in which it is growing cannot be limited or confined even to a specific area that, all right, I'm dealing with this group of people, or I'm dealing with life, it's on the basis of, you know, how much more money is going to put in my pocket, how much more gold, how many more bushels of wheat will I have tomorrow. I mean, I'll smile, I'll go out and have dinner with this guy, I'll be nice to my family. Because the company I work for, once you're divorced, forget promotion. That is not the optimum exchange. That is not the best that people can do insofar as how life is growing. I might also point out, at least if you think you've run to a dead-end street that I came to, or led you to a conclusion, how about on the contrary? It seems to be that, at least as it is expressed throughout humanity, that almost the other end of that kind of spectrum would be highly approved of. The little monks, people that go away and become recluses and carry along a holy book, or people who chant the name of God and bang their heads against walls and whirl around in circles. They do not want anything. They give all their possessions away, and if you try to give them anything, they won't take it. Maybe a little gruel, maybe a little oatmeal, but I don't want anything else. All right, from one view, from one place in the part of the room, you can think, oh, wait, now that's more like it. Now that's surely getting closer to the way that life is moving. And that's surely better for its growth than some guy over here, that's working 14 hours a day, and he wouldn't give his mother time of day unless she gave him a dime, unless he made a profit. These little monks and these people doing that are surely closer to the kind of sea forest, or as your forefathers would say, they've got to be closer to good works, doing what the gods want. Don't be too sure. They're all at the party. They all belong there. But remember, as soon as you run from one apparent extreme to the other, you're ignoring that kind of hidden topological similarity that those two people have together. Now, apparently you've got the monks, the people with a begging bowl and barefooted over here in this corner. And over here, you got all these hotshot stock salesmen, right? Wouldn't do for those two people to get together, those two groups. Or if they did get together, they'd have nothing to say to each other. Talk about boring. I can't let those kind of people sit together at the table. Conversation would go, it'd spoil the party. They have nothing whatsoever in common, right? Those watching tape who can't hear, we have adopted a new dog and it's in the back talking to us. I was going to sort of wrap up, maybe reach a few of these for the night, but still getting pieces of questions. They come in, even when I don't refer to them for a while, about feeling at times as though you run out of steam, as though you feel as though you have hit a dead end, or is there some trick I can give you to fill you back with enthusiasm or to get you out of this valley of the blahs? And fear, loneliness, all of this together. Let me reintroduce the word rebellion again. The only way that you can deal with this is through a sense of rebellion. And this is true even when it apparently has reached a level. And I don't mean a consistent level, but you will find yourself apparently hitting places that there's no other explanation than what I'm about to give. That the only reason there would seem to be for rebellion, assuming that I am telling you it's got to be constant rebellion, is it reaches levels periodically it feels as though, all right, if there's rebellion needed, as you say, the only reason I could see for rebellion right now is simply for the sake of rebellion. Aha. There apparently would seem to be that at times that you have apparently reached a point that the line level pressure, the kind of stress that life had in the past unknowingly been surrounding you with to help hold you in the position where you were in the grid, that some of these feelings of loneliness or not knowing which way you're going, and feeling as though you've lost the motivation to get up and to go, go, go and become a famous this or that. A part of that, or a way in which I can point you toward the situation again, is that at line level, everyone has a certain kind of, let's just call it pressure. It's not the kind of pressure that psychology talks about. It is simply the pressure, the kind of tensile strength that holds the grid together, that keeps the party going. People can't suddenly lay down, or people can't say, listen, I'm tired of the party, and whole groups of them go on a sit-down strike. Or a whole bunch of them cut a hole in the wall and get out of the party. The party continues to go on. You take a nap every night, but you wake up and the party is still going on. It did not stop when you went to bed. And there is this feeling of some of the pressure being gone. It's the kind of pressure that kept you playing out your kind of grid role. That you just, before you know it, you just seem to have less impetus to get up in the morning. Or it seems as though the kind of fears that you had previously about what people think about me in the party, they seem to mean less and less. There seems to be a lack of a kind of pressure to make you go on. That coincides with what I was describing as being the periodic feelings that I can describe for all of you that you will have, that if rebellion indeed is the constant demand, the constant necessity, there indeed seems to be times that if that be true, then right now the only reason I can see for rebellion is rebellion for the sake of rebellion, period. So what? To believe that you've gone down an erroneous side street is erroneous. As long as you are in agreement with the party, as long as you are in agreement with whatever group you find yourself engaged with, if you're not in rebellion, you're part of the party. And the kind of diminuendo of line level pressure finally has to be replaced, and in a sense it is being partially replaced right now by me. But you've got to find out that you have got to create your own pressure. And this is a new level. And ordinary pressure won't do. Ordinary pressure, that is, anything you've already done. Anything that seems natural to you. Anything that, even though you may have some voices that say, well, I don't particularly like that. I used to swim 2 miles every day. But since I've been running, I don't do it. I could go back and swim 2 miles a day and keep running. I don't particularly want to, but I could. All right, maybe I will. As they say in mystic circles, that ain't shit. If you've already done it, and if you know you can do it, that's not rebellion. That is not new pressure. That is, if it was pressure that was already extant, if it was pressure that life had already provided at line level, back at the level at what you seem to be, if life had already in the past produced that kind of pressure that at some time made you swim 2 miles a day, then you can't go back to it. You can't go back to it and recreate or reproduce any pressure. Now, here's a kind of pressure. Right now, I'll make it as sort of a suggestion instead of a task. But I make it as a most strong suggestion. A real kind of pressure, parenthetically, I might remind all of you have known it at least once, to what would seem to be pressure, or that which might seem to be a disagreeable or discomforting task. All of you at least at one time have experienced it going from what seemed to be disagreeable to the most fun in the world. And the parentheses would be, let us say, every Saturday for 3 hours for at least 10 months, but each and every Saturday. And if for some reason you can do it on Saturday, you have to do it on Sunday. But it should be on schedule. Was for 3 hours is to live as another person. And I don't mean sit home in your underwear and imagine it. But I mean get up, comb your hair differently, get some kind of clothes that you would have never worn. And I don't mean dress up like a stalk of celery. But just simply be you man or woman a kind of outfit that you would not ever buy, much less if it was laying around the house, if your grandmother willed it to you or somebody, you would never put it on, is to comb your hair in some funny, again, I don't mean ridiculous, but something you would not do that other humans have done and are doing. Comb your hair that way, put on a clothes, whether it requires you go get a three-piece suit and a starched shirt, something that makes you feel as though this is not me by any degree, and then get out of the house, even if it's just involved with going out and hanging around a shopping center, sitting down and having Cokes. But to go do that every Saturday, and not the same one. Do the same one until it doesn't matter anymore. That might take you a while. But it's do every Saturday for 3 hours with no excuse allowed. Because any excuses allowed is you going along with the diminuendo of pressure. It's you agreeing to a lack of pressure. It's you agreeing to a lack of any shock. It's you belying the fact that you think at times you wish I would come up with a magic pill that would always make you make some kind of extraordinary effort, because every time you can do it, it pays off. So why can't there be a trick? Every Saturday for 3 hours, it's do what I've described. Schedule is to do it. Back to the apparent problem of relationships here. Let me stick my finger in one little more specific area. All of you are certainly aware of it now that I have in no shape or form any interest in so-called morality. It's got nothing to do with that. Any of you that still have any feelings of morality anyway, you've been hanging around the yucca tree too long. But let me point this out, which I never have, and I mean this in a very specific way. You people that enter into relationships here with each other, you should not so readily be prepared to separate. You should not be as ready as most of you have been in the past. You definitely should not be as ready to separate from somebody in here as readily as you would with somebody out in life, or as you did before you came here. I repeat again, I am not referring to anything remotely resembling morality. I'm not saying that once you take up together you have a, quote, some moral obligation to make the marriage or the relationship work. That kind of horizontal talk is still mechanical. It is a reflection of something real, is what I'm trying to give you a hint at. That so many of you have been through 2, 3, and more relationships in here. Sometimes, not that unusual, I get informed that me and so-and-so is taken up. And then a week later, it didn't seem to work out. You should not be so readily inclined to separate, not with people in here. You're passing up a splendid opportunity to learn something. Once you find yourself, however it came about, you know, me and so-and-so are now sleeping together. Me and so-and-so are an item, as they used to say in the New York papers 30 years ago. Once you feel you, the other person, or both of you, verbal or otherwise, a feeling that this is about to come apart, it's less than it was yesterday. Compared to what you would do in ordinary life, compared to what ordinary people would do, I'm telling you, I repeat one more time, it's got nothing to do with morality. It's got nothing to do with anything in ordinary life. But you should make more effort You should try to exercise more tolerance. You should seek a greater insight into what the attraction seemed to be between you two, and now what the apparent conflict seems to be. And I am not in any way about to try and enforce this, so don't wait for me to say from now on, if you take up with each other, by God, you got to stay together, X number of weeks or months. But I'm telling you, you are making less than the optimum use of ever being attracted to anybody else here. That even if a week later you feel like, well, we tried it a week, I don't know, we was even thinking about moving in together, and it just seemed to be, it kind of hit both of us like, we shouldn't be moving in together. This is not going to last. You're making a move when you operate that quickly. They could deny you learning something that would be of real importance. You just should not so readily wash your hands of a relationship in here once you are attracted. How about another rhetorical dance question? I will drag your nose up to this at some other time. I'll start off with it rather simple. What purpose do you think life could be using in regards to men worldwide? All kinds of degrees, all kinds of languages, all kinds of pictures and images. Of having men believe that after death, they may go and join God. Now, from one place in the party, you could just discount it as being, well, that's the kind of thing that served our forefathers all right. That was back in the days of mythology, and that was back in the days of men being induced to believe that there is a God or God somewhere outside this system. That there's the party room here where we're all going on, and then the guy that put all the party together, sent out the invitations, made us all, and threw us here. And now he's just watching and either bored or having a good time, or maybe he's got real stodgy about it. Maybe he's decided that he's going to change the name from planet Earth to a Sodom and Gomorrah number 2 in Zapazal. So maybe it's just old-fashioned. It's just before men were more sophisticated. Don't get too entrapped by just listening to my sketches here, because all of you should still be aware of what's going on in the normal flow of this party. The belief, no matter whether they go to church or not, but the belief throughout mankind that when I die, within certain limits, if I was reasonably good, or if God's as tolerant as he should be, that we're going to leave here and we're going to go in with the force majeure. We'll go back, or we'll return, and we'll finally join the God, the real force, and we'll leave here and go and be part of him, or her, or it. What possible purpose could be going on? And worse than that, could there be any truth to it? Of course, you got to forget about Jehovah and God and Allah and somebody outside the party room. But why has that always been around? It's everywhere. The good people believe it, the bad people believe it, the indifferent people believe it, except you don't know that yet. Everybody at the party believes it to varying degrees. That's a part of being invited to the party. But once I die, I'll leave here and I'll go to where the party giver, the one that did all this, I'll go with him. She or it. What might life be saying through man? I am awfully tempted to hint more and more towards something, but I won't. Being the strong-willed TV star that I am. But I am, of course, hinting that, like everything else, there is a validity to that. But get past the gods and etc., but that I'm going to die and go join something, become a part of. I might also add that everybody in the party Everybody is assisting life's mechanical growth, of course. Everybody. By just being what they seem to be. Warts, guilt, fears, and all. That everyone is assisting life, but then a few people more directly assist the thrust of where life is going. So everybody dreams. Everybody has this already induced belief that once I die and leave the party, I'll go join the big party giver. There could be a mechanical, real basis for this kind of belief. But for anything that there is a mechanical basis for, that is a mechanical reflection, then would you not care to be closer to not the reflection, but that which is casting the shadow, to be closer to the reality, whatever it might be behind this belief, that I'm going to die and join something great. I'm not talking about the Masons or the Republican Party. I'm talking about something really great. At least we end on too much of a ordinary positive note. This is not to give you routine soap opera blues, but periodically you should do this. I'm telling you to do it now since I personally bring it up. What would you do if I stopped all of this? How many of you can recognize very strong voices in you that would be relieved, but that tell you, when I ask such a question, what if you showed up here next Thursday? Worth or Marcus or somebody was simply here and said, I got a note. He said, it's all over. And I know where he's been staying here in Atlanta. I went out there and it's deserted. Everything's gone. I got no idea. You know as much as I do. So how many of you can recognize quite distinct voices in you who would be highly relieved? How many of you can distinguish the kind of weight and importance of those kind of voices as opposed to whatever apparently keeps you involved with it? How many of you can see on which side the profit is? How many of you can tell me if I am making a profit by meeting with you in particular? What would you do if I just stopped it all? No need to leave on that kind of note, though, is there? There is an American gospel, down-home Protestant, probably Baptist shit-kicking gospel song that I think most of you have heard by now. We do it sometimes at a party. The song is known as I'll Fly Away. That we really get it going, but the song in general, those of you that don't recognize it, the song is, some glad morning when this life is o'er, I'll fly away. And that's the name of the song, and that's the punchline to the rest of the verses. But the first one, some glad morning when this life is o'er, I'll fly away. 3 words. Now forget I'll fly away. Let me present you with this. That every human, mortal, dream, expectation, plan can be fitted in to the blank place where you take out I'll fly away. Some glad morning when this life is o'er, I'll get a job. Some glad morning when this life is o'er, I'll buy a car. I'll take a trip. I'll get a nose. I'll fix my hair. I'll lose some weight. This is sort of a subtask for the week. Give yourself until sundown Sunday night. Those of you who know the song, it's more fun. I hate to try to sing it and ruin it. But just do the whole thing. At least the beginning of that verse. Some glad morning when this life is o'er. Whatever the stories you have, find for me an exception. That you can't take whatever seemed to be the dream. We're not questioning where the dream came from or its validity or how mechanical. Not just yours, but all of life. From the most perverse things you imagine in the darkness of your closet to the most grandiose of schemes, can it not be put into the three places where you leave out, I'll fly away, and just some glad morning when this life is o'er, I'll wear a dress. I'll run a mile. Find whatever it seems to be within you and of life. Find any exception for me. I'd like to hear it. Well, write it down. I want to hear it. Write it down. That you find one that cannot be fitted in to three words. Of course, by now you people know that once I throw out this kind of apparent challenge, that I already know the answer. That is, if you come up with one that can't be put in three words, you just didn't do it right. So write it down to me and I'll show you how to do it. But go ahead, because it can be fun. It's fun while jogging. It's got the right kind of rhythm. Some glad morning when this life is over, I'll take a rest. Then along about, maybe right after sundown Sunday, once you find out that I'm suggesting, I want you to see, that all human dreams, aspirations, fears, nightmares can be fitted into three words. Is that, just on a small level, is that sort of interesting? Not two, and four is one too many. Unless you can really come up with one, unless you really string yourself and you're really exceptional. How can they all be put into three words? If indeed I'm correct. Another suggestion, not really a task. I was going to tell our little band, the old Alabama Rumba Kings into Full Nelson, but this is with everybody. In regards to something I mentioned several weeks ago, is to try and, quote, do the new. I was going to tell the band to try it, but all of you can try it with writing, try it sketching. Could you try and get yourself in front of the flow going on? Just you individually, or as I said, the band, I was going to tell them, as you guys get together, and girls, or do it on your own, musically, just one example, and absolutely do the new. Not to take what would be horizontally right now considered avant-garde, I guess post-punk rock. But not just that, what would be the new? I'm talking about the new, in quotation marks, and the and you, capitalized, is to be in front of the flow. So it is a worthwhile, if not endeavor, an area to neuralize. How could it be done? How could I do it? Can I even imagine it? Can I feature that? We're getting close to the end.
25 minutes, 20 minutes.
You told me last week it was over 2 hours. No problem. If I stop in a few minutes, which I may do, won't we take a piece of film of the dancing and the playing? Leave on the lights for a while, or we'll try it, just turn the lights down and see if you get anything. I was going to give a specific task. I'm still strongly suggesting to you being a different person. I won't give the task while it's on tape. I'm going to read some of these, and then I'll give you people a task. I have been considering the difficulty of producing something new that does not involve hostility. I do not think it can be done below the line. It is like there is a certain amount of space for everything to exist below the line, and that space is already occupied. To introduce something new, something old must be destroyed to make room for the new. And therefore, the new must be hostile toward that which is old for it to destroy it. I'm paraphrasing some of this, but it's a very splendid observation, a little tract that someone took. While considering this, I kept getting glimpses of the possibility of creating or at least discovering a new unoccupied space. Curiously, it is almost impossible to think about a space that is not already occupied by something. To that I give a verbal bravo. In regards to the diagram you once drew showing the 3 seats of operations of the circuits within the system known as man, the drawing showed 2 areas of overlap, the shoulders and upper chest, and then the pelvic area. I find it interesting that these 2 areas of the physical body are the areas where tension is most readily felt. These would also seem to be the areas where a man's posture identifies him as his particular I. When I have personally tried doing imitations of people, it is these 2 areas that I find are the ones that had to be adjusted. I had to remember to affect these particular areas in order to try and do the imitation correctly. Here's one I'm just going to read. We'll let this be the finish, I guess. It's given to me and it's called Staying Pissed, Lesson 113. How to handle things working out just like you wanted them to. Once in a great while, despite our best efforts, a few things here and there are going to temporarily turn out just the way you wish they would. These episodes are not to be viewed as a setback, however, or a time of vacation. Far from it, they present a marvelous opportunity if you know how to use them. The next time this happens to you, just think back on all the things leading up to this brief moment and repeat these words. Well, okay, so things finally went right for once. Big deal. But I still shouldn't have to go through all this shit. I think we'll cut it there.